In this video, I'm going to talk to you all about contracts as a wedding invitation designer. I'm going to give you 10 clauses that you should definitely include in your contract, some options for creating a contract, some of my favorite vendors for purchasing contract templates, when and why and how you should use your contract. So let's dive in. Hi, I'm Laney. I'm a wedding invitation designer. I love to teach people how to start and run successful wedding invitation design businesses. I hope you'll stick around on this channel if you're interested in becoming a wedding invitation designer and watch some of our other videos, and also join our membership stationery school, which is just specifically for wedding invitation designers and has 60 plus lessons in it already. All right, so first let's talk about why you need a contract. I feel like this is self-explanatory, but as an invitation designer, you need people to sign off on your proofs. You need people to understand your policies. The point of your contract is you are telling people, here are my policies, and they are accepting that they have read those and accepted them. It is protecting both you and the client, and you need to make sure that in your contract, you are able to live up to whatever terms you put in your contract. So if every wedding invitation design takes you 5 to 6 days, don't say that you're going to have them ready in 5 to 6 days. Say that you're going to have them ready in 8 to 9 days, and then you can always over deliver, but you want to make sure that you're able to live up to any clause that you put in your contract, or else it's not protecting your clients to the ability that it needs to. And basically there's no reason for them to trust or follow your contract in that case. Your contract is of course also protecting you. It's going to protect you from refunds, from getting sued, from a lot of liability, etc. And so thus I want to encourage you to take this very seriously, and you might be surprised at the cost of getting a good contract into place, and you might be wondering if you really need one, and you might be hesitant to get one and put one in place, or you might be wanting to work without one. But please, I beg of you, even if you never have to use it, please take this seriously, because over the course of your business, if you actually are trying to be a real business, this is going to more than pay for itself, and it's probably going to protect you in some really sticky situations. Personally, I wouldn't work with any kind of designer or artist that didn't have a contract in place, and I would hope that the type of clients you're trying to attract would agree with me on that. Okay, you have 3 basic options for putting a contract into place. First, you can work with a lawyer and create one entirely custom for you. This is typically going to be a little bit more expensive than you need as a wedding invitation designer because of the other 2 options. The second one is you could potentially draft something up with all of the terms that we're going to talk about today, look up some stuff online, put something together, and then pay a contract lawyer to look over it to make sure your language is tight and you have everything in there that you need. I promise you it's going to be worth it to have all of the things they're going to add to that. And then the third, it's about the same cost typically as the second option, is going to be a contract template. I'm going to put 2 of my favorite template providers in the description of this video. I'm going to link those for you. Those have all been reviewed by contracts. They have areas where you can customize them a little bit, and they are going to be super well protected. Some of them, the contract shop usually does a Black Friday sale for about 40% off all of their contracts, although can't guarantee that's going to happen every year, but that's been what's happened in the past couple of years. Now, when in the process should you send your contract? I always send it with the proposal. So I use Dubsado. You can use any of the client management systems, or you can send it over just as a PDF, but then they have to figure out how to e-sign it, etc. I definitely recommend using a system where they can just do an online signature, because that's going to be so much easier for your clients, and it's going to get you your contract signed and you paid faster. So I typically like to have the proposal and then the contract and then the invoice. This is how it's set up in Dubsado, or if you use Honeybook or any of the other systems, I have tons of videos here if you're curious about what that looks like. But in that case, you're getting a contract signed before you're getting whatever your deposit or retainer is, and then they have agreed to all of your terms, and then you can start the project. I'm not going to do any design work. You might sketch. Some people sketch. I have feelings on that, but I don't personally sketch or do any sort of concepts or put pen to paper or click on anything in Illustrator until the contract is signed and I am paid a little bit at the beginning. Technically, when they sign their contract, they are on the hook for the money. I've had someone sign in the past and then not actually move forward at all. And since I had done no work, I'm obviously going to not hold them to the full contracted value of that project. But in general, the contract is kind of the creation of the project and the official start time. And I'm not going to put someone on my calendar or do anything until I have that fully signed. If someone wants to make changes to your contract, occasionally I have allowed this in the past, depending on how it's approached and how difficult the client's being, how much I want the project, and how reasonable the changes are. If they just want to change one little thing here and there, for instance, when I was a wedding planner, I had in my contract that I would find a substitute if I were ill or indisposed or injured or something and couldn't plan their wedding. And they wanted me to specifically name that person in the contract so they could sign off. So I was able to find someone, basically contract with her that she would be my backup for that day and put her in that contract. So I felt like that was a reasonable approach and was able to do that. If someone's being really specific about your contract and you have had a lawyer look it over, you've used it, you aren't really willing to meet some of their requests, you can absolutely just say no. That is a huge red flag and you should just move on. You should also move on if someone is not willing to sign your contract or not interested or wants you to work without the contract for any reason, even if they are your best friend. Frankly, if they are your best friend, they should be more willing to sign the contract. I have found that if you don't work without a contract, it will come back to bite you in the butt almost 100% of the time. So definitely get this in place and definitely enforce it. So what are some terms that you should have in your contract? I'm going to give you 10 really common ones, but these are not all of them. And I'm constantly revising my contract when new interesting situations arise with clients and changing things to make sure it covers me in the future if those situations arise again. So the first thing is timelines. You're going to want to lay out all of your timelines from printing to proofs to revisions, all of the timelines that are valuable to the client and that they're going to need to know about. This is a really big part of the contract. And again, make sure you can stick to those timelines almost every single time, if not every single time. Second, you want to outline the number of revisions that are allowed. This can be up to you. I personally allow unlimited revisions, but I limit to 2 design overhauls because if I am not understanding your revision the first time, that might be on me. But if I'm not understanding it the second time, that might be on you and we need to have a bigger conversation. You also want to include a scope of work in the contract. So this kind of gives your basic scope, like I allow unlimited revisions, but if we got to like 45 with someone, I would need to have a conversation with them. I'm really comfortable having those conversations, but especially at the beginning when you're not comfortable having those conversations, and if the client does kind of push back and say, well, your client says unlimited, then you might need to, just outline that in your kind of the standard scope of work. And then that allows you, if they get beyond that, to have a form of recourse. For designers, it's especially important to have color differentiation. This is because color can vary from screen to print and also from screen to screen. So definitely mention that in your contract and say that you're not going to give refunds for, acceptable color differences. Number 4 is a COVID clause. This doesn't apply so much to invitation designers because we have a lot more flexibility. But if a client is moving their date, you need to account for that because prices might go up. You may have started some work already. You may have to do some additional design work if they're changing their date a bunch. They might come upon a really busy time in your schedule, etc. So you want to have a clause that kind of talks about what they need to do if they're changing their date, what needs to happen if they're canceling their wedding and you're mid-project, etc. Number 5, we are going to outline our payment schedule. Typically, what most people do is like 50% upfront and then 50% with a final invoice. And you need to say whether this is due before you order products, before you ship the products. After shipment, I wouldn't recommend that one, but some people do it. I would typically make sure you get the payment before you are shipping to them, if not before you are ordering any of the products. Number 6 is kind of licensing and use of your design. So if you're creating something custom or if you're licensing a semi-custom design, you want to make sure they're not going to take those designs and use them elsewhere. A lot of times clients will just screenshot something off their invitation and print it on a napkin or a menu or something and not pay you for those things. So just make sure it's clear to them how they are and are not allowed to use your designs. Number 7, I love this one. It's just that any change to the scope of the work at all can affect the cost. This is because if they change quantity, even by 2, sometimes it can affect the cost if you need to buy a whole another box of envelopes or something. So I love to just have that in there. That's any change to anything about this project, colors, design, shapes, quantities, etc., it can affect the cost. And then I always say that I'm going to let them know about those changes before we officially make them and allow them to make that decision. So they might decide to stick with the original plan. 8 is a regular communication clause. I love this. This just reminds clients that their regular communication is required for this to work and for us to stay on timeline. So if I send you a proof and you don't respond for 3 weeks, then we're not going to be on your original timeline. And another thing that you want to put in your timeline section is that if they they don't abide by the original timeline, if they don't respond within like 48, 72 hours, however long you want to give them, then you're not guaranteed to meet that new timeline, and you're not even guaranteed to meet the original like span of work. So you might say it's going to take 3 weeks to put these invitations together, but if you don't respond and then I'm on a vacation or something, it might take 4 weeks. I'm not required to stick to that if you didn't stick to your original end of the bargain. Number 9, super important, is just limiting your liability after mailing. So saying that, you know, I'm not responsible for these after they get to the post office, because as we know, the post office can do crazy things with wedding invitations. So we're often dealing with that question of what to do if something gets wet or dropped or doesn't arrive on time, etc. And you want to limit your liability there. And then number 10 is your scope of assembly. This can vary from designer to designer. So whatever level of assembly that you want to apply with your orders, you need to include that in the contract so the clients are sure of what you're going to do. Are you applying stamps? Are you tying ribbons? Are you installing envelope liners? Are you putting the invites in there? Are you sealing them, etc.? So I like to be really clear with what I'm providing for each level of client. I have like custom clients that get a little bit more than my semi-custom clients, etc. So you want to make sure you allow for that level of assembly to be very, very clear, because a lot of times the clients will expect to receive the invitations in a certain condition. I also have clients who sign my contract and still expect me to be sending out the invitations for them despite having never discussed postage or said that I was going to do that or anything. So just being as clear as possible in the contract about that is really helpful. And that kind of brings me to my last point, which is don't expect your clients to read the full contract and retain all of it. It's kind of like that, like Apple terms and conditions. We always just accept and we don't actually read it or take it into account. They have to, on my case, initial every section. And some of them even say, hey, make sure you read this. Go back and reinitial again, because this is really important. However, we want to do everything in our power to make sure those terms are communicated clearly and in a way that they can remember. And we can't expect them to remember 3 pages of terms 6 months later when we're printing the invites. So what you want to do to increase your communication level here is just to continue to remind people of things that are relevant at the time. So, hey, here's your new proof as a reminder to stay on the normal timeline, which will have your stuff shipped this date. Then I need you to respond by Wednesday, etc. Or just as a reminder, I've ordered everything and it's going to take approximately 2 weeks to get here. And then I'm going to need about a week to put it together. So you can expect it at this time. Just as a reminder, I don't install postage or whatever. So here's my thoughts on postage for your individual speed, but feel free to take one to your post office and get weighed to confirm that before you mail them. So all of these little policies, we just want to kind of keep tossing them in there as they are relevant. And you can use a system like Dubsado or Honeybook or whatever. You can check out some of our other videos on there to see how we do that. All right, I hope this video helped you think about some new things when it comes to your wedding invitation design contract. I'm going to link to my favorite shops to get templates for this below. These are tried and true stationery templates that you will love, I promise. And if you have any questions on contracts or other things, please let me know in the comments. I can't answer everything because I am not a lawyer. I am not a contract attorney. However, this is just some general advice for your business and how helpful it is to have a contract in place. So let me know and stick around, watch some of our other stationery design tutorials. Thanks, everyone.